Hi good people, Titus here for another Unreal Engine tutorial, and in this video I'll show you how you can create assembly collections and use PCG graphs to deploy them in your environments. Let's not waste any time and just jump right into it. Alright, so I got the third person template here. The first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to have to enable PCG from the plugins menu. So just click on plugins and just search for procedural content generation framework PCG, this top one right here. Just check the box, choose yes, and then you'll have to restart your editor. Okay, we're back into it. Now the next thing we need is we need a landscape component. I'm gonna delete my content browser here. Currently I'm using the third person template, so the easiest way is to just maybe create a new level. I'm gonna choose the open world template and hit create because that comes standard with a landscape component to it. But you can use any empty level, just make sure it has a landscape on it so we can go off of that. To make this a little bit more interesting, I'm going to come to the materials and maybe just add a grass material from the starter content pack. I think that'll look a little bit nicer. The next thing we need to do is we need to create the PCG graph. So we can just right click, select PCG, and then choose PCG graph. And then I'm just going to leave it as the default name. New PCG graph. That's good enough for me. Then I'll just drag it in. You'll notice it creates this little volume here. Basically, anywhere inside the volume will spawn the magic of procedural content generation. Everything outside of the volume will be left alone. You can, of course, scale this volume to be whatever size you need it to be. Now let's work on actually creating a collection. So an assembly collection can kind of be a collection of anything. In this example, I'll do static meshes, but you theoretically could do like blueprints or, basically kind of whatever you need. I have the Mediterranean collection, which has a bunch of meshes in here. So we could pick maybe a tree. So I'll drag this out. And then maybe I can do some debris and position that maybe right around there. And maybe we can add like a rock. And then I'm gonna have to get in close to see where to put this here. Maybe right around there. And then maybe I'll rotate that a bit and dig that in. And these collections can basically be like, in this example, like you can do like artist-driven collections, and then you can just use the magic of procedural content generation to kind of tweak them in your world, which is kind of neat. So we'll add a little bush, and then maybe I'll add a twig as well. And then I'll rotate this. And then I think that's probably good enough for this example. Maybe I'll scale this down. I'm not quite so big. But yeah, there's my assembly collection. So what we have to do is I'm going to select the tree, then hold shift, and I can select my bush, my rock, my twig, and a little doodle dust at the bottom there, which I missed. So I will undo that and try clicking there. There we go. So with everything highlighted, and you can currently see, looks like we have 5 items highlighted. You can right click and then select level and create a new level instance. I'm going to choose a pivot type. You can leave it on the Z if you wanted, but I find it's easier just to use an actor. And then for the actor, I'm going to choose the tree, which is this one right here, I believe. And then I'm going to click OK, and it's going to have me actually save the asset somewhere. So I'll call this assembly collection PCG 01, or whatever you want to name it. What's great about that is now I can basically go to that level instance, drag it in, and then bam, you can basically spawn these kind of all over your world, and they basically have the same setup that you made when you created it. Now if you press Control E, you can go into like edit mode, and you can select one of the items. You can make an adjustment, like let's say I scale this thing by 3, so that's clearly a bigger rock, right? So then if I hit save, I can come over here and you can see the rock is now bigger. It'll affect basically all the instances in your world. So I'm going to delete this one that we spawned, and we'll just work with our original one here. So now that we have our assembly collection, let's actually create a PCG data asset off of it. All you have to do is you basically just highlight the assembly collection, or the level instance, and then you right click on it. And then under asset actions, there is a create PCG asset from levels. So just choose that and then give it a name, hit save. And you now have this basically data level or data item that we can use in our PCG graph. So let's actually spawn this assembly collection inside our volume, and then I'll show you kind of the point of today's tutorial. So we'll open up our graph. Now to reference that assembly, you just right click and search for load PCG data asset. And then once you have that highlighted in the details panel on the right, you can basically select the asset that we created. So highlight it there, and then you see I have the root and the points. I'm going to press A to open the attributes and then expand the details panel here, and then change it from root to points. And you notice that we have, it looks like 5 elements here. So the 5 elements are going to be, at least how I understood it, all the components underneath it. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So basically the rock, the debris, the tree brush, and then the actual tree, and then more ground debris. So those are the twig basically. So anytime you're in PCG and it's referencing points, just think of it like, part of the collection, like one of the, in this instance, it's one of the static meshes. The other important point to call out among the attributes tab is basically anything you see in these columns, we can filter off of, and we can even add things into these columns and then create filters later, which is what we're going to do. But let's hold off on that for now, and let's simply get this thing spawned. So we'll do get landscape data, and then we can pull that into a sampler. So we'll do surface sampler, and then I'll probably adjust the values later. Let's just get it going. I'm going to pull into a transform points so we can make adjustments to it later. And then on our actual PCG collection, we can pull off the points element and do a sampler for copy points. And then we're going to plug the transform points into the target. And then from here, we can just go into a static mesh spawner. And then this won't work right out the bat. As you notice, it's blank. But in the details panel for the mesh selector type, right now it's set to weighted. So if we change that to attribute, we then basically need to target one of the attributes. So in this volume, if I look around, we have this element right here called mesh. And the attribute value of mesh basically contains all the basic, of course, the static meshes, right? So if we set the attribute name to mesh, we see that error goes away. And now if I look, our PCG volume has instantiated our assembly collections. Now, that in itself is just normal PCG 101, and it's not too interesting. Where it gets interesting is when we start adding in those attribute fields. But right now, this is kind of uniform. Let's see, and it's probably too much. Maybe let's see if we can make some adjustments. So I'm gonna go to my sampler. I'm gonna increase my points by 200, and that should, there we go. So it's not as many. And let's add some randomness to it. So under the transform points, I can maybe add a random rotation, maybe 0 to 359 degrees, and a scale of maybe 1 to 2. And then we have a little bit of variance. Maybe that looks a little bit better. So, okay, perfect. So we'll go off that. But right now, you can see everything has a tree, a rock, debris, a bush, all the stuff that we created. So let's go back into our asset here. We'll press Control E to edit it. And what we want to do is I'm going to select the ground debris, and I'm going to select the tree. I'm then going to go to Actor, and under Advanced, there's a Tags field. I'm I'm going to add an actor tag, and I'll just call this maybe tree. And that is, make sure you do it under actor. If you go to all and you search for tags, there is a component tags. It doesn't use that as far as I know. So you'll have to do it under the actor tags. But that'll be for the tree. So now let's do the other items here. So I'll select the bush, and I'll do the little twig, and then I'll do the rock. And then I'm going to add an actor tag, and I'm just going to call this junk. You can call it whatever, it doesn't really matter. Then I'm going to hit save. And if I go to the graph, you'll notice we still have the attribute selected on the assembly collection, but that attribute field is nowhere to be found. So the reason that happens is because you need to reload the assembly collection. So you basically have to right click on that data asset, and then under asset actions, there is a, sorry, actually that's not correct. I think, or actually maybe it's under the level instance. Nope. Oh, sorry, it is going to be under the assembly collection. I was under the wrong one. So under asset actions, update PCG asset. That's what you want. That's what I get for not using good names. So, okay, so under the PCG data asset, asset actions, then update the asset. And then from there, you'll notice we now have two columns called trees and junks, and some of them are marked true and some of them are marked false. So this is how we can basically filter off of. So pulling off our static mesh spawner here, let's go into a attribute filter. And then for the filter, we are going to set the operator to be equals, and then we can target one of these attributes. So I'm going to target junk, and I'll use a constant threshold. And then for the type, I want a Boolean, and then I'm going to set this to true. So we have an inside filter and an outside filter. The outside filter is basically, you know, obviously anything that doesn't, so if junk is false, that's going to be the outside filter, which would be trees, right? So we want to spawn the trees, so I'm going to plug that in here. However, if junk is true, we can pull into a select point sampler node, and we can tell it to maybe only spawn 0.3% of the time. And then we can pop that into the static mesh. And now if we go over here, you notice that some of the trees has nothing, some have a rock, some have a bush, some have a twig. So you basically get more randomness with your actual collection. And that can be very handy because that's basically, you know, like an artist driven, they can create the actual little bundles, and then you can use PCG to kind of like randomize it based off tags that you use. And then you can kind of spawn them in your world, different transforms, rotations, different areas, what have you. And you can get as complex as you want, but it's a pretty good system. But all right, everyone, we'll cut the video here. I hope you found some informative value that you can take into your own projects. But as always, thanks for watching, consider subscribing, and we'll see you on the next one.